I had an introduction, and I forgot it. So, and I hope that doesn't happen all the way through. And so we're going to cover a period of time that we and many in the audience were in India for Meherabad and Meherazad when the mandali were there. It'll cover a period from 1975 till about 1997. What else was I supposed to say?
You were supposed
to. So we'll talk along with a slideshow. Most of the photos in the slideshow are ours. Some are other people's because at times we used to trade photos. If you see your photo, thank you. I'm sorry. Ann Giles as a contributor to this, and who?
Cal Bullock.
Cal Bullock and others. Anyway, you're on.
Jay Baba. So Glenn and I traveled to India for the first time in 1975, 50 years ago. Right around this time in early September, we went for the first time. And we got ourselves to Bombay, and by the grace of God, Ina Lemon, a wonderful old Baba lover from Australia who had met Baba, was there at Nargish's house, and she became our escort to get us to Ahmednagar. And she took us under her wing, and she taught us our first Marathi word, I'll stay, which means slow down. We heard that.
In the taxi cab, she kept saying, I'll stay. I could somehow, in my mind, picture her hitting the driver over the head with a phone.
I don't think she actually did.
No, but she did.
And so after a long flight to India and being in Bombay and getting to Ahmednagar, which was a very long taxi drive, we arrived in Ahmednagar, and Ina took us to the trust office first. It was late afternoon. Nobody really was there, but she took us right into Adi's office, which was his office and his bedroom. And just as you can imagine, we were jet lagged and we were a little disoriented, you could say, a little discombobulated by the long journey and by being in India, which was so unfamiliar to us. Some of us might have wanted to get right back on the plane and go home, let's put it that way. But she brought us into Adi's office, which was, as I said, also his bedroom. And there on the back wall, Adi was on his bed, sitting up with his legs outstretched. And Lakshman, who we met later, he was there. He was one of Adi's old faithful servants, as we say, and he was massaging Adi's feet with talcum powder. And all I can say is it was so cozy, so comforting. It was such a nice scene there that I felt so much better just being there, and of course seeing Adi in this very relaxed and intimate way. That was really a gift from Baba.
Then what happened?
And then what happened is we got into a rickshaw and we went out to Meherabad. So we arrived at Meherabad in the very late afternoon, early evening dusk. It was rainy, it was cloudy. And of course, Meherabad was out in the country. We got out of the city into the country, so everything was starting to get better. We met Padre for the first time. I just remember a towering figure, kindly, but, awing. And we met Heather Nadell and Lindsay, then Wessel, later writer, for the first time. And they escorted us up the hill. And there we were climbing up Meherabad Hill for the first time.
But it was dusk.
It was dusk.
And rainy, so it created a nice atmosphere.
It did. And no cell phones then, no cameras, except your little...
No electric.
No electric.
You're out in the country.
And as we're climbing up the hill, I remember seeing Baba's tomb in the distance, and it was an awing moment to realize we were really here, and there's Baba's tomb. But it was very quiet back then, no loudspeakers, no microphones. And we finally arrived at Baba's tomb for the first time. And Mansari was there, Heather and Lindsay. And we went into the tomb for the first time. It was dark.
I was glad to find this picture because it reminded me of that first time we were there. It was darkened, and my feeling was, my first trip to India, which later I got to love everything about, as most people did, my feeling was no matter what, whether I don't like this, whether I just want to turn around and go home, I'm going to Meher Baba's tomb. That's where his body is. And it had that feeling, that first time of going there. Something being very, very special.
Literally awesome. Well, the next day, dear Ina escorted us back to the trust compound, and it just so happened it was Adi's birthday, Adi Kairani, Baba's secretary, and they were having a little party for him. And so again, we met Adi in a little more formal setting, and we met. There's Adi and Erich in 1975 in front of the trust office. And we met Erich for the first time. And we're standing outside of Adi's office, and Erich says, "What's your name?" And I said, "Laurel." And he said, "Moral?" No, Laurel. And may I interject right here that most of our stories are just recollections, and there are not too many morals to be had. just so you know. And yeah, so you tell.
Like Laurel can remember a hamburger she had in high school at Wendy's, and who served what at a dinner in 1980. I can't remember that, nothing like that. And it was Adi's birthday party. I remember nothing about it, except there's 4 faces in my life that I remember meeting. I remember the time that someone put in my lap an article with Meher Baba's picture in it. So I remember that moment. I remember the moment I met Laurel in Baba House. And I remember, the only thing I remember about that is Mani and Erich. And across the table, Mani and Erich. And that was a strong impression. Yeah.
And we also met Rano at that time, who sat down and had a nice talk with me about New York, because I was a New Yorker and she was a New Yorker. But my first impression of Mani was not from then so much, but it was sometime later at Meherazad. A little funny story. So we had been there for a short time, have no idea how much time had elapsed. And I was standing on the veranda outside of Mandali Hall chatting with Erich. And I was telling him about how back in New York, one day, I and a few of the other young women from Baba House were playing a little game. We were making believe we were the different women Mandali. So if somebody obviously grabbed Mera to be Mera first, and somebody got Mani, and I got somebody else. And I mentioned it to him, God knows why. And he turned at me and said, "Why, when you're so young and beautiful, do you want to be an old woman?" And instead of focusing in on that beautiful thing, which really was, I focus in on that, I was stunned. I was floored. I was gobsmacked because I didn't expect any kind of reaction like that. It really hit me. And I must have been standing there with my jaw dropped. And Mani was a little further along on the veranda, and she came running over to me. And she took me and sat me down out on the chairs outside the blue bus. And she started telling me a little story and making me feel better. And what she said was, which was the first time I'd heard this, was, you know what Baba said? He told us, you'll see them, my children, gems. She was so sweet, and she just saved my life, so to speak. And she found a fast friend in me for life.
I'm going to go off script here a little bit.
Oh my
and hope
God.
to not push the time, which we've been struggling. We've been struggling to not keep you in the seats too long. And so I had an opposite experience in an early time there. I didn't know the ropes at all. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And Monty came up to me and she said, I have a letter here from someone who's visiting New York, and they want to know what Baba things are available in New York. And you're from New York, aren't you? I said, yeah. You go to Baba House? I said, yeah. So you answer it. So I answered it. And a day or two later, I was sitting on the green bench in front of Mandali Hall. And Erich was sitting next to me. I must have been there early. And Monty came along and she said, did you answer those people? I said, yes. I told them all about their Baba House. Where's the letter? I said, where's their letter? I said, I threw it out. What? You threw it out? Your parents didn't raise you? What's wrong with you? And then she started sort of talking sort of yelling at Erich in Gujarati. I understood though. And so Erich thought, oh, the kid might have a nervous breakdown or something. So while Monty's sort of going on, he's patting me on the back like. So then she said, where'd you throw it? In that garbage pail over there. She went and got it. I went in the back, ironed it, and came back and said, and next time you throw out a letter, tear it up.
Wait. Okay, oh. And then shortly thereafter, after Adi's birthday party, we got to go to Meherazad for the first time. And by the way, we were in a rickshaw with Bauji. We hitched a ride. That was great fun. And we met Mera and, of course, Mehru for the first time. And Mera brought us into Baba's room. And she stood in front of Baba's bed and said, this is where Baba would rest his lotus feet. And she bowed down and kissed the cushion. And that was the first time I'd heard that phrase or witnessed that kind of love and devotion. She also showed us this hair that's embedded in a big piece of plexiglass. And with a flashlight, she showed us where Baba's face, just by coincidence, we could call it, appeared. It looks like a little sculpture. You can't see it here. You have to be there with the flashlight. And she also took us into her room. And at the window by her bed, there was a tree, as many of you have seen. I'm not saying anything new to most of you. And where Baba's face had appeared. And years later, I was in Mera and Mani's room, and there were a lot of visitors there. And Mani came in, and she told a story about this face of Baba that appeared. Now, we could talk about this tree and this face for hours, so I'll only tell the story in brief. But she told it in her own inimitable fashion. And that was that after Baba dropped his body, of course, Mera was in terrible grief. And when they came back from the 69 darshan, Mera just didn't want to do anything. She didn't want to garden, which was her great love. She didn't want to go out for walks. She just didn't want to do anything. She was too upset and sad. And she would, just to get a little movement, she would pace back and forth in the house, from her room to the sitting room and back and forth. And one day she was doing that, and she got to her window and looked at the tree, and there was the face on the tree. And she called to Mani, Mani, come, look. So Mani came running in. Mani, look at the tree. Is there a squirrel? no, look at the tree. And Mani saw Baba's face on the tree. Mara told her, go get your camera and take a picture. It might disappear just as it appeared, but it didn't. It stayed for years and years. And in 75, it was certainly there when we first saw it. And it gave Mara great comfort to know that Baba is telling her, I am here, and you should stay here and serve me here forever. And and Mani said they were very happy that Mara felt such comfort from this. But there was a little problem because after a little while, that nose, you see the piece of bark? That's the nose. It was starting to wobble a little bit and get a little loose. And Mani was very nervous about it because what if it falls off? Mara will be very upset about it. And Mani thought, what can I do? Can I get some glue and put it behind there? But what if it drips down? It'll look like Baba has a cold. And she said, she tossed and turned all night, what to do. But Baba had his own solution because she found, let me just say, there's a kind of spider in India that weaves a very sticky mass. So if it gets between 2 pages of a book, you can't get the pages apart. Well, in the middle of the night, that spider went to work behind the nose. And she woke up in the morning and she went outside and it was fixed into place. It wasn't wobbling anymore. So Baba saved that, and Mara had Baba's face there for many years to come.
Everyone who went early then, they saw that. And I really think of Baba in a natural way, and I hardly think of sort of miraculous things. But that was, after Baba passed away in January, there was the 69 darshan, which quite a number of people here went to. And when they came back from that, this face had appeared. And it really was remarkable how it looked like Baba. It's still, in 1975, it still was there and looked remarkable. Erich used to comment that while Baba was here, the villagers didn't come. When the face appeared in the tree, we couldn't keep them away. They were coming day and night.
Like I said, there's a lot of stories about that tree. Well, I think we better go back to Meherabad. There's Baba at Meherabad. You can see the retreat in the background.
And so
we thought we'd describe a little typical day at Meherabad back in the day.
In the days of pilgrimage in the 70s, there wasn't any pilgrim center. You used to stay in the small old India city of Ahmednagar in private quarters and bicycle or take a rickshaw out to Meherabad, where you would meet Nanakir and the other people, the disciples of Baba living there, and you could go in Baba's tomb for darshan, and there would be morning arti. We'd all cycle out or be there. These photos are later on than the 70s. I didn't have any from back then, but this is from the 70s, and at that time you could see Andrea sitting there. At that time you could sit in the samadhi all day long if you wanted to. And there's Padre and Mansari, and this is Erwin Luck in the back there, Nanakir, and that's Eric Tepperman and Laura Wenger, and with Nanakir, and I don't know who that woman is.
Kim, we'll never know.
Kim, yeah.
And then as you would walk around Meherabad, you saw all these old buildings. There's the tin shed where Baba lived in the 30s. Don't quote me on the dates. And the old hospital room where Baba had a seclusion room. And you realized you were getting a whisper from the past. And of course, there were the old people there too. Our Mansari in her kitchen.
Mansari and everyone used to go have tea with Mansari in the afternoon, and Mansari was full of a lifetime of stories. And Mansari wound up living on the hill. She was on the hill with Baba's women disciples in the early years, in the 30s, 40s. And at some point, I could have this story a little wrong, I'm not sure, but it's close. at some point, Baba would constantly travel in the 30s and in the 40s when the women were on the hill, and maybe at a time he didn't take Mansari with him, and she was a little upset about that, and Baba said something to the effect of, "It would make me happy if you would say, Baba, you go anywhere and I'll stay here." And so when October 1949 came about, that was the new life, and Baba disbanded everything, and he was going out through India, in India with only a few disciples, and everything else would be disbanded, and the women would be sent to their respective places. And at that time, I think that Mansari wanted to stay, and so she said to him, "Baba, you go anywhere, and I'll be happy to stay here." And so she spent the rest of her life there on that hill. And she used to say, "I love two things, G-O-D and D-O-G."
There's the pillar, one of the pillars of Meherabad, our Padre. I loved him. He was just wonderful. And we're not doing full justice because there's too much
But what's he doing there?
So not only was he a pillar, he was also a homeopathic doctor. And here he is tapping out those pills into a little envelope. And I sat there and I waited for that finger. So I wanted to get it. And that's his kitchen. I mean, you're just back in the past. This was part of being at Meherabad in those early days. You felt like you were in the ancient past.
Muhammad the Mus. We won't talk about that. It's too much.
Okay.
Duni. Baba started the Duni again. We don't know dates. I think in the 30s. And the object of the Duni is that you would take a piece of sandalwood, dip it in ghee, and throw it in the Duni in hopes of getting rid of something you're trying to free yourself of.
And may I just point out that that little boy is Ramesh, who was just here last week, Ramesh Jungle. Yeah, so the Duni Padre would preside over it, and it was, wonderful. And there was no electricity at Meherabad, so you got a kerosene lamp to carry around. The stars were beautiful. There were no loudspeakers. There was no traffic. It was just beautiful.
And you got to stay for 4 nights in one of those old rooms, and it was a nice time. All you had was a hurricane lantern. There was no electric, and it was charming, beautiful. And when you woke up in the morning, you heard on the road the bullock carts rumbling out.
The old village of Arangown?
This is the road in front of Meherabad. That road now is a 4-lane road. It's impossible. It's very hard to cross. There's a tunnel under it. And Eric should go back and say, Eric, I've heard him say a few times when Baba passed away, Baba's body was put in a kind of rickety ambulance and was driven to Meherabad. And at that time, the road was rubble and not totally paved. And so Eric used to say the municipality missed its chance. And then not long after that event, they did pave the road.
Yeah. And we love the old India ways, carrying water pots on their heads. Oh, here's women's arti. Just a beautiful feast for the eyes, feast for the heart. Everyone dressed in gorgeous saris, flowers. And more important than anything, the love and devotion that we got to witness, the Mera and the women. By the way, this was the arti that they had when Merwan and Zenobia Mystery, who were just here, got married in New Jersey. This was the wedding arti. But, it was just, but this is how we learned. Kitty and Elizabeth. And you got to mingle with Khorshid, with Katie, with Mani, with Rano. There's our Lindsay and Heather, our escorts up the hill. Ellen Book.
That's Laurel.
That's me back in the day. VJ, I think you all know VJ. And Gulu. Hello, Devana. And Mara would offer flowers at Baba's Gadi, where he was so many times back in the day. She'd kiss each flower, and that's how we learned.
This is Amartiti in late 70s. In the Amar Tithi is a celebration of the day Baba passed away. And so people come, especially at that time, the Baba lovers of India didn't have the means to come through the year. They would come at Amar Tithi and Baba's birthday. And the early Amar Tithis were just a couple thousand people. And they were mostly people who had met Baba, had been in Baba's company. The atmosphere had a kind of fire to it, especially because all the mandali were there greeting everyone. And I feel like it had a charge to it, and I think that they kind of felt a revival of Baba amongst the crowds created that type of feeling.
And here's Mara and the women mandali early in the morning. This is like 4 o'clock in the morning. They've come from the East Room where they stayed for the occasion and have their own private little arti and darshan at Baba's tomb when everybody else was asleep. And then come to Baba's Gadi, which was moved to the Sabha Mandap across from the tomb, and have bhajans. And it was wonderful to be so intimate with them early like that. Here we are escorting Mara up the hill, and a great fun making a cordon around her so that she didn't get jostled and she wasn't touched by any men. And sometimes we went over the fields and hills, and it was just wonderful experience. And people would come and meet and greet her. We don't have any of those pictures, but after she passed away, they would come and meet and greet Mani. And I got the impression maybe this was what it was like to be at one of Baba's darshans, the way she was giving, loving as he did.
Like a couple thousand people would file by, and she gave a loving greeting to everyone. They all wanted to meet her.
Yeah.
And then the other event.
Do you want to tell them the last? Yeah.
So, and then in 96, Mani was not well. And so Amar Tithi is in January. Mani passed away in August. And she wasn't well. And at that Amar Tithi, I'm almost certain, Laurel will correct me, she didn't sleep at Meherabad for the Amar Tithi. And she came in the car for a darshan. The car pulled into the compound, and the compound is next to where the samadhi is. And she must have gotten out of the compound, and people escorted her towards the samadhi. And somehow, there's a crowd of several thousand people stretching from the samadhi down the hill towards the stage. And as Mani approached, Rustam and Saurabh and others created a corridor because it was packed with people, a corridor towards the samadhi entrance. And then Mani with Mehru and Gohir and others walked through that corridor, but somehow the crowd knew that this was Mani's last Amar Tithi. And it just erupted with Avatar, Meher Baba Ki Jai, just rolling down the hill like that, as if somehow it went through the crowd, and without knowing the facts, somehow underneath knew that this was her last Amar Tithi.
Yeah, we got to experience a lot of momentous times.
And so Erich would also, for 3 days, 3 nights, sit on the edge of the ledge of Baba's cabin and meet everyone and answer all questions and tell stories of his life with Baba for 3 days and nights. He would say, these nights are not for sleeping. It was very hard to stay awake, but some of us tried to, and there would always be a crowd, a little group around him that would do it. And in the middle of the night, it'd be a nice thing. He'd say, okay, let's go and make the rounds. And we'd go around and go to the different encampments. Like the Andhra people might be here, how many were people there? And I remember the Andhra people made coffee, and you sit by the fire. This is in the morning of maybe the 3rd morning, and we're watching the sunrise, and that's Dennis. And Steve Edelman, Erich, myself, and Brian O'Neill.
Okay, look at them. Last of the Mohicans. Okay, let's go to Meherazad, also known as the Trust Compound. There is Baba in the then Kushwa quarters with Adi's mother, Gulmai.
And on my first entry visa, end of 79, 80, at that time, Craig Ruff, who is a stalwart and spends his whole life there serving Baba, was in the room that this is outside of, and he went home to take care of his father who was ill. And so I moved into that room, and and so I was the only resident. A resident means that, and unlike a pilgrim, there were quite a number of people who asked Mani and Erich and Adi, can I stay and be part of and help? And so you would get a certain visa, and then you'd have duties to do. And so I was in that room, and this is the trust office, which is very beautiful to be in, very nice.
Where are we, honey?
And so in that room, or I just mentioned, so to eat, I didn't know what to eat, so I used to eat out of the canteen, just snacks, because I lived at home. My mother cooked, and so I don't cook. I don't cook. But so Naja, that's Naja, and she said, "What are you eating, boy?" And I said, "Oh, I get cheese snacks and a hard-boiled egg from the canteen." She showed me how to make eggs and potatoes. I did all right with the eggs, but not the potatoes. And you also had to boil your milk. That's how you make it safe. You boil the milk. And I remember telling Bill here once, "Oh, I boiled it in the morning, but it went bad." "Oh, don't be a baby. The Tibetans make their tea with rancid milk, you know." So. But anyway, and this is women's arti again, and showing it for a reason. One of the first lessons I learned, maybe I was there, I don't know, a week or two. It was summer. So, and it must have been, maybe it was a Saturday or Sunday, and no, Mani or Erich had not come into the office. And I was new and didn't know anything, and so I cycled out to Meherabad to go to the women's arti. So nice. The next day, Erich said to me, "Where were you yesterday?" I said, "I went to women's arti." He said, "Arti? We don't go to arti." He means the men. They wanted the pilgrims to go to arti, not play volleyball. He said, "We don't go to arti. Arti was Joe Smith or Ramesh came. Somebody came and there was no one to greet them and meet them and help them out. That would have been arti if you had been there." Yeah. Yeah, so that was the first little lesson about having duties.
And there's Pendu.
And so in that summer, there wasn't anyone, all the other residents who helped Meherazad hadn't come yet. And so the duty that I had was to things around the trust office, which were all charming things, receive telegrams. There was no phones, no iPhones, and the landline phone was not very good. And so telegrams was the way that most messages were sent. Should I do that now?
Yeah, do it now.
And so I would receive the telegram. A man would come, ring the bell on his bicycle, and you'd go out, take the telegram, give him 50 paisa, bring the telegram to Bao, Erich, Mani, whoever it is. They'd write a reply. You cycle it over to the telegraph office, and they send it. And very often, telegrams would be, person passed away. And so I'd bring them out to Meherazad. So at one point, Erich nicknamed me, "Oh, the angel of death is here." But, so, and is that the ladle?
Yes, that's with the ladle.
And but a duty I had at Meherazad was working in the dispensary. Can't call it work. It was wonderful. And many people did that. We'll get into that later. But I always loved being around Mani and Erich. And so the dispensary would finish around 1 o'clock. And maybe in one of the first weeks I cycled back. And neither Mani or Erich seemed to mind if I just sit there. I could hardly speak the English language, so I'm not going to take care of letters or anything. I just sat there and listened. And Erich looked at me and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, dispensary's over." He said, "Oh, no. There's nobody there. It's summer. And someone has to be there with Pendu. He's not well. And someone has to be there to help him." And so then I stayed at Meherazad after the dispensary and helped Pendu walk up and down, do a few other things. And just basically sit with him, make sure he had someone there.
I'll tell that story. later.
Yeah. And so I'd sit with him, and really, at that time, I was a dumb kid. I mean, I don't know if I'm smart
At
now,
that
but I
time.
was definitely dumb then. And if I was with Pendu now, I would ask him every question in the world. I would try and get everything about Babajan, about Meherabad, about Baba's father. But at that time, all I would
Pendu, by
say
the
is,
way, being Baba's first cousin, for those who don't know.
at that
So
time,
he knew Baba as a child.
yeah, he grew up right down the Mahalla. And so I would say, what's the score of the cricket game? Because he'd listen to cricket on the radio. And, oh, you like President Carter? Oh, God-fearing man. The only thing I remember him saying about Baba was, he said, and we were sitting around Baba, and we were eating. And I took a morsel of food, and I was putting it up to my mouth, but Baba started to speak. And I kept going and put the food in my mouth, and Baba picked up a ladle and flung it at me and hit me in the head. And from that I learned, when Baba speaks, stop everything and listen. Yeah. What next?
Oh, the trust office. Yay. Well, I worked in the trust office. Again, work is not really the proper word. From 1975, I would always help out in the trust office. And the day began with a honk, honk, and the trust car would come into the compound, and everybody who was there from the registration office, from the trust office, a large cast of characters would come to meet and greet. Meeting and greeting was really the order of the day back in the day. And the first order of business at the trust office was to garland Baba's picture. And there's the photo there. And there was always a garland sent from the bazaar. There still is every day. And Mani would take it, and she would measure the string with her fingers and tie a knot, always just in the perfect place. She'd climb up on a little wooden step stool and garland Baba's picture, and then climb down, and everyone would start the day, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai, and the day would begin. But then every so often, it was face washing day. Mani would wash Baba's face. And we had all these different cloths, wet cloths, dry cloths, soft cloths, all set up in advance. And Mani would climb up and get one of those damp cloths and scrub that frame, really give it a good scrub, and get off all this Ahmednagar grime. And then she would switch over to some nice soft cloths, and she would polish the glass over Baba's face very lovingly. And she'd take the cloth, she'd kiss the cloth, and as she was polishing Baba's face, she'd always say, peanut butter kisses, which I love, of course. Okay, so the day was terrific. There was a lot of work to do, tons of correspondence, all kinds of things to do. But what was the most fun part? Oh, meeting and greeting. Oh, hello, there's a few of the secretaries, little Laurel and Heather. And what you don't see is there was a window right by Heather's shoulder there, and Mani's desk was right behind it. So every so often you'd hear, Heather, baby? And Heather would go running in, and then she'd call out, Margie, that was her name for me. And I'd go running in, and it was just a joy and a pleasure.
And there were so many secretaries.
And there were so many. Okay, I'm going to read the list. There was Andrea. There was
Pat, Irene,
Cabby, Meredith. They were in the registration office. Steve Klein. Of course, Devonna came with Erich. There was Mark Keller, Peter Booth, Debbie Nordine. I mean, the list goes on. And I've left out many, I'm sure. And the best part of the day, of course, was lunch. And a lunch was hard-boiled eggs, cucumbers, tomatoes, and chapatis. But this is a birthday because you could see balloons, and you could see we're eating something delicious like dansak. And you can see that little bunch of roses. Please keep that in mind for a future story. And Rano taught me they'd always bring a bunch of roses if it was someone's birthday. And Rana once taught me to remove all the thorns from the stems because you would never offer roses that had thorns to Baba and in extension to anyone else. So the birthday, the lunch time was great. It was stories, it was jokes. It was quite a wild affair. And right behind Monty, that's Daphne Klein's head, Kebby, our Andrea, of course, Balna too, and Carrie.
And happy birthday,
Bills.
Daphne.
Yeah, happy birthday, Daphne, today. And then we go back to do some more work back in the back with Erich there. We're reading, we're proofreading. It could be the trust agenda. It could be the Amartithi circular. It could be anything under the sun, but it also could be a lot of...
And of course, Ivana would always be here, but we didn't have a photo.
I think she took the pictures. It's really what
I
happened.
took the picture, yeah.
Yeah.
And it would be a very fun time around Erich, around the table, and Gary would be a main person to get stories out of Erich, yeah.
And then at the end of the day, there's Monty walking down the veranda in front of the trust office, no matter what. And they were long days and we were very busy. She always went to greet Khorshid, and to greet and to sit and to chat with Khorshid. And Erich would go over to Bauji and talk to him at the end of the day and say goodbye to all the trust workers. And then they'd get in the car and we'd wave them off and you'd see her little hand outside the window. Jai Baba Avatar, Meherabad Ki Jai. Oh, there's the young pioneers.
That's in front of our room, and this is our room. It's all in one room, kitchen and all.
Our kerosene stoves, no refrigerator, no running water, buckets with spigots, bucket baths. You're hanging out with Bauchi, you're hanging out with your friends and little Monty Brown over there.
Rachel Monty and John Connor and Meredith.
And all the buddies, and Khorshid. She would tell stories of the old days with Baba, teach you songs. Our Bauji, we spent tremendous amount of time with Bauji. That's a whole other program.
Very nice with Bauji. Yeah.
And there's our gang. It was so informal, and it was just...
He often came over at dinner time to chat and talk.
There we go, Bauchi and so many others. This was the cook, Suman, in the yellow. She came to the trust compound, Kashmir quarters, as a teenager. Gulmai, Adi's mother, taught her to cook, and she was a wonderful cook.
We love them.
Yeah. And there's the good old canteen across the way.
Where I mentioned
Lime Ricky. Yeah. Remember Lime Ricky's?
And there's Rich D'Amato and Art Nordine. Again, Rich D'Amato.
Yeah, he hung out there.
And then after people would come back from Meherazad on the bus, they would hang out and have soda and snacks and chat. And talk.
And even Monty would go, on a rare occasion, she would go over there to buy some provisions, or I remember she was making little snack packets for people, residents, for their birthday. And she'd have a good confab in Gujarati, of course, with Minu and with Godrich. And because we're in India, lest we forget, you never know who might wander into the trust compound. This is not our photo. Obviously, it's an old postcard, but here's a guy with a cobra.
A bear. They would come with a bear and hope to get a rupee or two for a little trick in a photo. And the man came with a cobra. He wants something. The camels came. This man was a wandering musician, and he came in and
with his wife.
Yeah, and I drew a picture of him.
You never know when a cow might need a piece of bread to eat, or a dog eat, Ronnie.
What about the Hakim that came?
Oh yeah, that's right. One day we are at the trust office, and this Hakim, medicine man, came with all his potions and pills, and Mani was very interested. She had him come into the office, sat him down, and they had a big long thing with, all his stuff, and she's talking about her knee or whatever the thing is. Oh, she loved that. She loved all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, now for goodness sake, let's go to Meherazad.
So I put this in here just because this is right outside the trust office, and now we're going out to Meherazad, either I to be a volunteer in the dispensary, or Laurel to go help Monty there. And this is what the road looked like then. It's a 4-lane road now, very hard to cross. But you could see no one on it and how nice it was. Go on.
And we're going to go via the bazaar, which is geographically incorrect, but we want to get some of those pictures in. Oh, I'm dropping off some clothes for this wonderful man who irons them for you. And when on your way back, he gives you beautifully ironed clothes. There she is ironing at the coal. There's Mayor Taylor.
Almost everyone here got a shirt or something from Mayor Taylor.
The original Mayor Taylor's. That's his father. That's Emil's father.
And his father would be out at Meherazad sewing in Baba's time.
Did all the
Yeah. And the bazaar is so colorful, and many nights I was there because as I was come back from Meherazad, Goher or Meru would have an errand to run. And it was our barber. He would come to the trust office and give a haircut. And you got your fruits and vegetables in the bazaar. You had your vegetables here. The tinwala, that's his mother. And
he made things out of old cheese tins and heaven knows what.
And I took this picture because you could see there's a painting up there. It's a rough, rustic painting of Babajan. I showed it to Mani, and she said, "Oh, must be an old disciple of Babajan."
She took great interest in all these little day-to-day things.
Just the old buildings that are disappearing that had such great ornate architecture.
You might not want to live there, but they were fabulous to look at.
They're disappearing.
Yeah.
And trucks would always have artwork on them, be it Islamic or Hindu, Radha Krishna.
And then as you got further away from the city, which didn't take very long, maybe you'd see a tanga, horse carriage, bullock carts.
Now we're on the way to Meherazad, and the road would be like this, not full of cars.
Maybe a camel or two.
Yeah. And traveling shepherds. This photo's here because he's with the traveling shepherds, and you see the boy on top. In the basket are chickens, the pots and pans, and in the green sari is a baby. And on the road to Meherazad, you would see pilgrims there. These are pilgrims you see with the orange flag and carrying a sitar on the way to Meherazad. Bullock carts, people with their herds going out. I painted this. It's not dark enough. I hope it's visible. It shows from the road leaving Meherazad. That's the view you had.
You stood at the side of the road with your bicycle. Now, if you stand on the side of the road, it's all
buildings. You can't see this view from where I painted it.
Yeah, the good old days.
And near Meherazad.
Now we're on the approach road to Meherazad, the old farmhouses made out of
this type of mud adobe thatched roof farmhouse doesn't exist anymore.
Baba's neighbors on the approach road. They're carrying great bundles of grass for the livestock, I suppose. What do I know? I don't know.
And we've arrived in Erich, and Erich is on his morning walk. He would take a walk in the morning for his own relaxation, and sometimes people would come with him. He would put candy in his pocket before he left Meherazad and give it to children, people, dogs. And this old woman lives towards the end of the approach road and lives in that hut by herself. You could see a bucket there with a rope. I imagine she got water out of a well. Her name is Dondibai, and she would come out to receive the candy, which she definitely did not consider as candy. To her, she thought it was prasad. So she would receive that prasad.
Now let's go to Meherazad, the beautiful gate. Oh, it's so good. First stop is Baba's chair in Mandali Hall. Oh, there he is.
Which has Baba's
so strong.
So much presence.
Decorated for Baba's birthday. Hello. Maybe we'll stop by outside of Erich's room where Davan is typing a last-minute letter. And you can see, Erich, can you see on the far right-hand side in his room? And Goher is doing the bazaar list, and she's on her way to the dispensary. And here is the old dispensary.
This is the dispensary, and I was a volunteer there. So many people. Uta, Paul Williams was a person cycling through India. He passed Meherazad. He wondered, what is this place? He came in and he became a Baba lover and stayed and helped in the dispensary. I, Danny Ladinsky, Dave Milger, Devana, Casey,
Bob
Irene
Aarons.
Holtz, Bob Aaron, so many people, Ann, our Dr. Ann.
Oh, look, there's Dr.
And,
Magrini.
and nurses and doctors who were visiting would want to spend a day or two in the dispensary, which served all the villagers of the area. It was especially great for them because there was no facility as good as this to service them. I used to draw them, and they liked being drawn. They'd be happy about it. And go back to that one. In India, little children take care of littler children.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm looking down. She's holding a baby in her lap.
The grandmother, the gnarled hands.
And so the villagers who would come, Gohar would say, "Why did you come 10 miles? There's a dispensary there." "Oh, but it's not like here. This is Baba's place, and we receive a lot of love here and good care." And Bobby Street was also there. And one of my duties, which was many people's duties, was manning the dressing station. Now, this boy doesn't have a bad wound, but many people, at that time, many of the villagers were really poor and had no medical supplies in their house. And if a farmer got hurt and had a wound on his leg, he'd wrap a rag on it and wait till it became infected and come in. And many of the wounds would be very bad wounds like that. A man, he's not so bad off, but some would be very poor. And I would be dressing them, and often Dr. Gohar would come walking back just to see, and she'd come and look and make a comment. She might talk about what they had for dinner last night. She might say, "Oh, last night we had dansak. I know you like dansak." Or she might say, "Oh, what they were watching on TV last night." And one that I remember that was very strong, she came back, and it's a very poor man. She's walking back, and she looks, and she feels sort of sad for him, and he had a very bad wound, and I was dressing it, and then she said, "Oh, yes, last night we watched that movie. I don't know which one it was. It was one of the movies about the Holocaust, maybe the hiding things." And she said, "Oh, those men, what they did, even to children, they'll suffer in their next life. And then they'll come in here as one of these wretches, and we'll say, isn't there anything we could do for these poor people, for this poor man?" Yeah.
Yeah. Here's one of our success stories.
And this baby she came with her feet deformed. They were pointing out. Her mother brought her. And they really had no other recourse for this. She would never be able to walk. And Gohar patiently kept strapping the feet back over months until the feet came to normal, and they did. And the baby, and as it grew, even when she was married, she came and brought presents to Gohar, and they would come and be very grateful to Gohar.
So beautiful.
This is Pendu in his room, and I guess somehow it shifted over from Pendu used to. He loved the villagers. He always did, from old Meherabad, and he would write the case papers. Each villager had to have a case paper. Oh my God! And they paid 50 paisa for the case paper, because if they didn't pay for it, they'd throw it away. It was important. So, but it was a cute thing. He'd be sitting in his chair, and two little children, really raggedy, would come over with 2 eggs and show them. He'd go, oh. He'd go and get his little purse, open it up, give them 50 paisa, and they'd go home.
And what about about eating lunch with him?
Once I lunched with them, they would eat on that veranda. The men, of course, probably men, at the veranda, and they eat very fast. They grab food and they eat really fast. And Penda looked up at me and said, "You know why we eat like this? Because Baba will call you at any moment and you lose your lunch."
Let's go back to Mara's garden, the beautiful garden that she created from nothing. Also a program in itself. And there's Baba in Mara's garden at Meherazad. Baba's room, Mary and Mani's room. That's after they both had gone.
Mani made
Mani's,
origami.
Mani's dressing table with her origami and her little incense burner, and she had her own private. There's Baba and Mara place at the dining table, all dressed up for Christmas or Mara's birthday, both, of course. You can get a hot chapati in this wonderful building. And Mara, of course, oh, well, what to say? She was such a wonderful storyteller, and she would really bring all those days of being with Baba back to life. I mean, she was such a good storyteller that once she was telling me about how they sweep the grounds at Meherazad, and it was absolutely fascinating, hung on every word. So you can imagine when she told stories about Baba, you were just transported. Oh, there's Kitty. Our Kitty would visit. That's how we knew her.
We don't know Kitty from here because in this period of time we were rarely here, but Kitty came for at least a month. She'd stay at Meherazad, and we knew Kitty from Meherazad.
Yeah. And then Mara, back in the early days, there's Shelley and me. We had bought these saris at Sardis, and she put them on us and dressed us up and gave us bangles. She was just wonderful. There's our Terry and Molly. And now it looks like that Anne there and Cheryl are going to go have tea with Mara, but the rest of us are coming out here with Alaba. Rush out, time for tea, time for tea. And the tea time out here on the veranda outside of Mandali Hall, just another opportunity to chat, to talk about Baba, and just to have a comrade. Now that is not Fereshte. That is her doppelganger, Patty Ursig.
That's
Yes.
Sarah's twin sister.
Yeah. Here's Monty hamming it up, telling a story. And here's one that I took this picture. And what this story is that, and you can read the background story in God Brother, Monty's book about her childhood with Baba. The story is that she, as a young girl, and this girl named Maina, who was Sadashiv Patel's daughter, and he was a very, very early disciple of Baba. They were there, and they find that Baba is sitting on a ladder that's leaning against a wall, as if he's on a throne, and he calls them over. Come on, come over. So they go running over, and he says to Maina, what do you want? I'll give it to you. And she says, I want a very handsome husband and a big, wonderful wedding. Done. And then he turns to Mani. What do you want? And she says, I want to be with you always. Done. And she was. And this story that she's telling, oh, P.S., there's Stella, is of Mina's wedding. Sure enough, she got betrothed to a very handsome boy, and they had a grand wedding. It went over 3 days, and Baba attended this wedding, and somebody gave him, probably Sadashiv Patel, a beautiful pashmina shawl that Baba wore around his shoulders, and he was watching a very famous mimic, and this guy was imitating 2 cats fighting. And it was so fantastic that at the end of the performance, Baba took that shawl and he flung it at the man for him to have as a gift from Baba. Now, I had heard the story before, so I was waiting for the moment when Baba flung the shawl and I clicked. And just the second after I clicked, she gave me a look. I don't know what it meant. And of course, Mani telling stories in Mandali Hall. Well, Those days can never come back. Mani and Eric.
Sometimes Mani and Eric would sit together. Sometimes Mani would sit by Baba's chair. And sometimes it would be Eric's day. Sometimes Mani's day. I always loved all of Mani's childhood stories of growing up with Baba.
Can I tell this one quickly?
Oh, yeah.
You see this jacket that Mani's wearing? Well, when she was 21 years old, she had joined Baba when she was 13, and that meant she had to leave her mother. And long story, won't go into all the details. But the thing is, when she turned 21, she had to go to a lawyer to sign some papers. And her mother was going to take her. Shanji would escort them both to the lawyers. And mother, Shireen Mai, had to ask Baba, Mero, when I take money out, can I bring her to tea? See, she couldn't just do it on her own. She had to ask Baba. And Baba thought about it and he said, okay, yes. And when I take money to tea, can I get her some cakes, little cakes? And Baba thought about it. Yes. And can I get her a gift, some kind of gift? Yes, fine. So the gift was this cloth that you see here. This was the gift that Shrimai got her daughter, Mani, that she later had made into this jacket that she wore to the end.
And we love all Mani's stories of being a child growing up, seeing Baba Jan, and all the characters who came to her neighborhood, the vegetable sellers, the man who would light the street lights, there were gas lanterns. And she loved the Gopi Chanwala. Mani would sing often in Mandali Hall. There's many recordings of her, and she's beautiful, great to listen to her. And one of the things she loved as a child was the Gopi Chanwala, who came around singing songs of Gopi Chand. Gopi Chand was a prince of India, I don't know when, hundreds of years ago, and he
renounced his kingdom and all associated with it to become a renunciate. And then
he became a perfect
master.
So go on.
Okay, so the Gopi Chandwala is the man who sings this song, and he played a one-stringed instrument, doing, 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 and he would go from door to door and sing this song, and people would give him some coins. And Mani loved the Gopi Chandwala, and this is when she was a child. She'd follow him and squat and listen. Then he'd go to the next door, and she would go and follow and squat and listen to the Gopi Chandwala. And her mother would ask the neighbor if she wanted to know, where is little Mani? Back in those days, children were much safer. Not, where is Mani? Have you seen Mani? But she would ask, where is the Gopi Chandwala? What lane is he in? Then she knew there she would find Mani. And Baba had a play done about Gopi Chand that the Mad and the Musts put on. And Mani also did a skit of the Gopi Chandwala. And I believe she played him, and she made the instrument out of a oatmeal can with one string, doink, doink, doink. And she had a mustache that went up her nose, and then the mustache fell out, and that was the part that Baba liked the best. But it made me think, because Baba had that play done about Gopi Chand Raja, Baba must have seen the Gopi Chandwala too. It was Pune. He must have done it. It just gives me a thrill about that.
All of these type of musicians travel constantly. And then, of course, Erich would be there, and Erich gave his life. He was there for years, from the time Baba passed away till he passed away, answering all our questions over and over, and telling all his stories of Baba's life. And Erich had the knack of always making people feel at home. So whoever was new and came in, Erich would ask them, how did you come to Baba? And he would make them feel comfortable. One incident I remember was a person came, I won't say his name, he he sure is Eastern European. He had an Eastern European accent, which I'm only bringing that up because it sort of he sort of seemed gentlemanly. He sort of had a continental type gentleman attitude, and so Eric says, and we're after introducing him and asking him how he heard of Baba so and so in Los Angeles, told me, and Eric says, and what do you do? He says, oh no, Eric, don't ask that. He says, what could it be, brother? We talk about everything. There's nothing to hide. Oh no, Erich, it's nothing. No, tell us, it's nothing. You don't have to worry about anything. He said, oh, Erich, I run a liquor store. Erich said, oh yeah, Baba did that too.
The tiny shop. Now we're really gonna. Oh my God, that's the Lion of Love. You never know what's gonna happen in Mandali Hall. There's Tim. It's the Lion of Love. And all kinds of other things would happen in Mandali Hall. We're going to really speed it up here because we're running late. There's Mani with Gulruk, with the kids, with her toys, with her Pune family. Ah, yeah. What about that? See? Yeah, the kids loved her. We all loved her. There she is, all dressed up, as she told me. It's all for his royal family. Okay. Could we be more talented? Here's Christmas, and we're going to have to skip a lot. Oh, there's Wendy. Barabacha.
And Christmas was so beautiful at Meherazad. Everyone loved it, and the women all made these Christmas packets with a message in it, which is still done. And all the Mandali would come for their Christmas packet too.
There she is with her nephews and her sister-in-law, Parimai. Oh, hi, Steve.
Steve brought both of these carts, electric carts.
Begum and Ducky.
Both go here, and Mani were having fun.
Okay. Well, this one I'll tell really quickly. I'm sorry. We hate long meetings, but there's so much to tell. Mani got ill. This is not the big illness, but she got real sick. And they called Marwan Mystery, happened to be visiting. He's a surgeon. What's wrong with Mani? She doesn't, she feels terrible. He said, well, it's the cross between a virus and a bacteria. She goes, oh, a Victoria. So here she is recovering from the Victoria. And at that time, I've got to tell this real quick, I was staying there and helping out. And I found in the sitting room an old Reader's Digest, and just, I don't know, I read it from cover to cover. I read every word of that old Reader's Digest just in the mood. And I came across an article called The Romance of the Pearl. And because I was in that mood just to scour this old Reader's Digest, I looked at the byline, and who wrote it? William and Margaret Stevens. Oh my God, it's Bill and Peggy Stevens wrote this article, our old dear friends and old Baba lovers. And I brought it to Mani and I showed it to her. And she said, oh, I remember this Reader's Digest. And I showed her the article, The Romance of the Pearl. Oh, I remember that. I read it to Baba and Mara. The hairs on your arm go up. And I go, oh, well, look who wrote it. And she looked and she went, wow. I mean, they didn't know that. Baba knew them before they knew him. And it just so happens that they were there in India at the time. And furthermore, it was their wedding anniversary. It might have been the 50th. I'm not sure. So when she recovered from her Victoria and they went out for women's arty, she brought that Reader's Digest, and as she was meeting and greeting with Bill and Peggy, she just put it out on her hand like that. And they looked at it and they're like, huh? And she told them the story, and well, you can just imagine how they felt. Oh, there's our Meru, our darling Meru. She was lots of fun. And we went on great rambles and scrambles. Wherever she went, we went running behind. She could scale any hill and dale, and somehow we kept up. great badminton player. And I'll tell a quickie story about Meheru, and then we're going to have to wrap it up.
Okay, you got it.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
All right. So, as you might be aware, there's an ancient poet in India named Kabir. Baba loved Kabir. He quotes Kabir in the discourses. Everybody in India loves Kabir. He wrote poems, and he wrote these very pithy two-line couplets. And the mandali loved Kabir, and they taught us many of these couplets. One day, out of the blue, Meheru comes up to me on Mary's porch and teaches me a couplet that all I can tell you is it starts, Jotoko Kante Bube. I have it written out, but it doesn't matter. And she told me, Jotoko something, 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 something. And she said, that means if somebody hands you a thorn, you give them a flower. Your flower will come back to you, and that thorn will turn on them. Okay, she taught me this couplet. Wonderful. Terrific. Okay. Time goes by. I don't know how much time, but I don't think it was a short amount of time. And it so happened I was staying at Meherazad, and one of my duties was, as a temp, of course, I was always a temp wherever I went. One of my duties was to pick flowers in the afternoon and to put them out in Baba's room so that Mani could place them around Baba's room for their evening arti. And that was done on this dresser where that hair was. You'd put them out. She would place the flowers. Then I'd come back in, clean everything up, and everything would be ready for evening arti. So that evening, I walked into Baba's room, and Meheru's place was by that dresser. They had all their own places. And I walk in, and she has a big frown on her face. Margie? I go, yeah. She sticks her foot up, and in the big toe of her foot, of course you're barefoot in Baba's room, is a thorn. Uh-oh, you remember those roses that Rano had taught me? Well, I guess I had not cleaned up properly because somehow that thorn landed on the floor and it landed in her toe and she was not happy about it. Meheru could be, pretty tough. And I picked the thorn out of her toe and Baba came to my rescue because I was inspired to say, Joe Toto, and that's all I had. That's all I had to say. She said, oh, Margie, and she gave me a good wallop, and that was that. Okay, Seclusion Hill.
And one of the things that would happen at Meherazad would be Eris would take people up the hill and tell them the stories of Baba on the hill.
And by the way, there are two wonderful pictures of Baba up on Seclusion Hill that you should look at. You see, it looks like bricks under his feet. That's the Seclusion Hill.
And the reason this is here, just a quick story. I used to, sometimes if I would get to Meherazad early, I would hike a bit around the land in the back in front of the hill. And once I was coming sort of over the ridge towards Meherazad, there was a kite way up in the air, sort of over the back area of Meherazad. And there were no boys around there were no kids around holding the string. It was stuck in some rocks. And so then I came down into Meherazad and I bumped into Mani on my way to the dispensary. And I said, I told her, I saw this kite. It's way up there. It would be flying over sort of the back of Meherazad. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, it must have got away from them and got stuck. But she got very interested in it. And she said, oh, go back and see if it's there. And I went back, it wasn't there. But then I wonder why she was so interested in it. Then I thought, oh, well, one of her early memories is flying a kite with Baba.
Yes, which you can read in God Brother, her wonderful book.
Maybe she had a good memory from that.
And are you all queued up, honey? Yeah, you're gonna need to be. High production values. And here's Mani reading out of her God Brother book and our Margaret Euchre. But wait a second, rush out, time to depart, board the bus. Take your belongings, leave your longings. And we had to leave after a wonderful day and lifetime at
And
Meherabad.
Oliver would ring a regular bell, but he also would ring the camel bell, which hangs in the back of Meherazad. And I've heard Mani say that's the bell that was on the New Life, on the camel caravan, on the New Life. And that bell is rung to remind the people in the caravan it's time to go. It's time to go on. This is not the destination. We haven't reached the goal.
And so everybody would come out and there'd be more hugs,
Ariel,
more love.
Jeremy.
We're not partial or anything. More and more and more. And now, and we would all reluctantly get onto that bus and our hearts were so full. And say what you want to say.
I'm trying to get it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so.
And we just.
Were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. Sing and dance forever and a day.
We live a life which is we fight and never lose. Those were the days, oh yes, those were the days.
Da 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 da
Da da da Those were the days, oh yes, those were the days. Jai Baba.